Hello, everyone. I'm Ida Chongson, President and CEO of Opal Portfolio Investment, SPV. I'm also an independent director of publicly listed tech company Surpass Inc., director of Fintech P2P lending platform Sidin Technology Incorporated, and a trustee of Fintech Alliance PH. Welcome to Digital Beats, where we feature industry leaders and discuss about latest technology trends, Alibaba Cloud solutions, and behind-the-scenes stories. Today, we'll be having informative discussions with GCash, now a double unicorn, the undisputed leader and preferred mobile wallet in the Philippines, leading the country's shift to digital fintech. It is also top Philippine financial app in Google and Apple Store, and among the top 3 overall free apps, only behind TikTok and Zoom. We are happy to have with us one of the busiest person who is the tech power behind this financial technology company, GCash. Greg Igaya is the head for technology of GCash. He oversees all technical aspects of GCash, ranging from product development lifecycle, introducing new product features, to managing the core infrastructure and platform, to providing related software and systems that support the operational requirements of GCash. Greg, kindly wave to our audience.
Hi, Ida.
For Alibaba Cloud, we have Clarence Pascua. Clarence is the solutions architect of Alibaba Cloud Intelligence. Clarence plays a vital role in the customer's cloud adoption journey and is a witness as to how technology, culture, and mindset play an important part towards digital transformation. Let's start with Greg. Couple of questions for you first. People, including regulators, have been talking about financial inclusion, getting those people without banks to do transactions digitally. Here, we have GCash leading the way. Tell us more about GCash path towards financial inclusion in the Philippines, the brand's vision for the virtual wallet. By the way, you can even include even in the pre-pandemic time.
So our journey over the past 4 years has really been founded on the idea of financial inclusion. What that really means is, in the Philippines, a lot of individuals don't have access to bank accounts. Up to 60 estimates range from between 60 to 50% of Filipinos don't even have access to a basic bank account. So our vision ultimately is to enable Filipinos to have access to those financial services. At the lowest level, so obviously doing something cashless or doing something using technology so that you're able to do financial transactions provides a lot of convenience. So one of the sort of first use cases around going digital has been really around the cashless, enabling cashless transactions, and specifically enabling online transactions. So this allows individuals, for example, to pay their bills. It allows them to facilitate payments. So if you're doing online shopping, you can actually pay for something. It allows you to do remittances very conveniently. So if you happen to work in Metro Manila, but you need to send money to the province, that's something that can be facilitated with GCash. And then lastly, we also have a very unique product line called PowerPay Plus, which actually allows small and medium-scale enterprises to manage their payrolls. So a lot of that's really tied with the fact that you don't have to be handling cash. You remove the physical constraints around managing payments and fund flow. But more than that, it's really about, when you talk about access and financial inclusion, it's really enabling access to a certain subset of financial services, which are very important for Filipino families who are trying to make ends meet, as well as for enabling entrepreneurship. So as an example, a large proportion of the Philippine population, because they don't have access to a bank cannot even access formal lending services. So in the Philippines, these are commonly known as they tend to um, leverage what's called 5-6, or basically loan sharks, who are able to provide credit services for them, but at very high interest rates. So the idea is, if you enable them access to um, financial services, they'll have access to all of these supplementary capabilities, such as access to credit, access to investment, for example, which can help folks, for example, who are saving up for a rainy day, get yields that are better than your average savings account. And I think all of that sort of comes into fore. So that was the original vision, but all of that really comes into fore now that we are in the pandemic situation. Whereas before, the idea of GCash was, it's an alternative to doing cash. It's a lot more convenient. In the current situation, however, it is no longer a question of just convenience and ease of use. Right now, the current situation prevents you from physical contact. So people have no other recourse except to look for alternatives that are contactless, or that do not rely on physical presence because of the current COVID situation. So ultimately, and that sort of also explained a lot why we've grown significantly over just the past year or so. The current situation has just forced people to look for viable alternatives to enable the day-to-day things of having to buy your grocery, or having to buy your medicines, having to pay your employees through alternative mechanisms. And the fact that, again, as I mentioned earlier, since people might not have a bank account, they need to turn to something in order to enable that capability. And GCash just happens to be one of those alternatives. And we've been very happy that we've been able to sort of address that problem for the average Filipino.
Interesting, Greg. Thank you for that one. Greg, why use cloud? What are the key decision drivers that push GCash to integrate Alibaba Cloud solutions from previously using on-premise platform?
So one of the key challenges is, as we mentioned, if you look at the total internet or adult population in the Philippines, we're really talking around 60 to 70 million individual Filipinos. So we needed to look at a platform and solution set that will be able to serve that base. But one of the key problems was that when we started out with our journey, the idea of having GCash being used every day and as part of your day-to-day life, that was a dream. So at the time, we were saying we would target a third or maybe a half of that in terms of regular use. So one of the key considerations really that we were looking at was we needed a mechanism that could scale fairly effectively. And obviously, we looked at cloud solutions as a mechanism to do this. As a startup, so we still, technically, we still count ourselves as a startup. Part of the challenges is having that big vision of serving a lot of people, but starting out relatively smaller. So scalability for us really meant that we needed to look at a solution that would allow us to grow from serving a certain smaller proportion of base to, as I mentioned, serving a third or even a half of the total internet population. And we needed to be able to do that in a fairly short period of time. So that's one aspect of scalability. I think the second component of it is scalability is really also about figuring out how to leverage infrastructure effectively. So this basically means having the right flexibility in terms of the individual components that you're using in order to build your platform or in order to build your solution set. The second factor for us, the other thing on scalability that I keep forgetting to mention, part of the challenge in the nature of our business, especially since we're targeting things locally is that there's a certain seasonality to how users actually use the app. So what you'll tend to notice is, and this is true of most locally targeted businesses, there are peak periods when people are using our service much more frequently. The two that come to mind obviously is when they're during off hours, meaning normally towards the afternoon or evening, our utilization rate sometimes triples. So you need to figure out a way in order to make sure that you scale that effectively. And the other seasonality obviously is Christmas time in the Philippines, given the fact that um, purchases, sales, and generally gift giving and financial transfers just double during that window of time. People just have more spending capability. So we need a mechanism to make sure that we adapt to that scale. But the nice thing about cloud is that you can scale on demand. So what this means is I don't need to make an upfront investment around infrastructure, which in all honesty, that's basically money on the table. If you invest in fixed infrastructure, the challenge for you is that's overhead that you're not really utilizing very effectively. So those are cost elements that you need to manage. And at our scale, even just 30% overage translates to thousands of servers that you will need to overinvest in. So scalability, that aspect of scalability is very important. And then the second one is really about security and compliance. So we needed to work with a partner on our cloud infrastructure that was obviously had good foundations around security, because we are basically dealing with other people's money. So Alibaba Cloud for us fortunately provides a lot of certifications out of the box. So part of your challenge is, if you're gonna go the data center route, is that you have to look at data center management certifications around what's called, there are actually international standards. In this particular case, the standard is called ISO 27001. So very fortunately for Alibaba Cloud, they're already certified at that level. And then lastly, I think they should be able to provide support. So our third key challenge is our particular service is very dynamic, and solving problems at scale is sometimes not that easy. It's very easy to build a website that will serve, let's say, 1,000 customers. But once you scale that to in the millions, the challenge of intermarrying infrastructure and software becomes much more paramount to ensure service stability. And with that, the other advantage really of Alibaba Cloud is that they have local presence to help us in both technical support and operations as well.
Thank you, Greg. I see where you're coming from. Now for Clarence, Alibaba Cloud entered the frame. How did the cloud journey with GCash go?
Thank you for that question, Ida. So cloud can really help enable and support businesses, especially startups, businesses in the financial technology space, because they have very unique demands and requirements that are, we haven't seen in years. So Greg talked about, GCash's mission to support the government and the regulatory's mission to reach the unbanked, to expand the financial inclusion, right? So that we not only people that are residing in the cities have access to financial services, right? But also people that are in the far provinces, right? So it's for everyone really. So the cloud can really help with that. And Greg talked about the seasonality, right? That being a challenge, right? Because you have varying demands at different times of the days, or at different days of the months or months of the year, right? So if you deal with that on a traditional way on premises, right? Typically what you'll do so that you'll be ready for this increased peaks in demands is that you will over provision, right? You will over provision your resources in computing power. You will over provision your resources in storage. And not only that, you will also over provision the people, right? Your people resources that will be required in order to support these peak demands. And at the end of the day, you're not always running or operating at peak, right? There would be times that, there will be valleys in terms of demand. And there you would see, unoptimal usage of your infrastructure as well as your resources. So the scalability that Alibaba Cloud provides to GCash really helps solve that problem, right? Because you can scale on demand or based on certain events, right? So that you can be ensured that you are supporting your customers, you are always available. So to meet the demand, even if it's during a very peak, high peak season, or maybe even during off hours, right? Now, we're not saying that that's impossible to do on your own, but if you try to do that on your own, it will be not only be difficult, but a part of the challenge is the cost, right? So, because you're going to be buying hardware, infrastructure that are over provision, and then you'll be paying also for your people resources, right? Aside from that, being in a highly regulated industry, that puts you, in a situation where you would have to follow very restrictive standards and frameworks. And that could be quite difficult and challenging thing to do for startups, right? Not only in terms of technical challenges and people challenges, also it's gonna take a lot of time in order to comply with all of these requirements or controls. And the cloud does that, right? Because the cloud employs resources that are experts in this field. They've done it. They have a very intricate experience in this field to make sure that the infrastructure follows such specific controls based on the industries. And the economics of scales of having a hyperscaler, investing in the infrastructure to provide to its customers. So that a bit flexibility, right? You pay for what you use. When you need it, it's available. So it's that could be very helpful. And we've proven it to be very helpful in terms of GCash's journey. It's really exciting now to see that GCash is integrated to the lives of a lot of Filipinos, right? I do my shopping online, my groceries online, and I use GCash to pay for these services. Greg talked about buying medicines, right? So I order my medicines online as well. I don't go to the physical store, and a way to pay for those services, for those medicines, is also via GCash. So it's very much integrated into our way of living right now. And and it's also inspiring to know that the Alibaba Cloud technology is supporting, this GCash as they penetrate or become more ingrained into the lives of the Filipino people. So GCash, is being powered by a lot of products and solutions from Alibaba Cloud. We have our computing service, our ECS, right? So ECS is a very scalable, highly available, cloud virtual machine that GCash uses to host its platforms. It's very well rated by third-party analysts in terms of its computing power, and it's using a very powerful or the newest Intel processor, as well as using it sits on top of our Alibaba Cloud architecture. It is also using RDS for maintaining its databases, and it's a platform as a service offering from Alibaba Cloud that provides that high performing and highly available database that can really scale to support the needs of GCash, which is really growing. We also have offerings in terms that supports the big data and analytics for GCash, which is max compute. And in terms of security, right? We offer, WAF, which provides GCash with protection on layer 7 and on the application layer, basically provides protections against cross-site scripting attacks, SQL injection attacks, right? Those attacks from the OWASP top 10 that, make sure that the platform is secure and is kept highly available for the consumers.
Wow, Clarence, that's really, really interesting. You talked about cost flexibility. People think about digital transformations expensive. While Greg actually mentioned a little while ago that, in fact, it can be tailor-made, no? So depending on the requirements. So I understand that Alibaba Cloud Solutions, you're also catering not just for the big companies, but you can cater also for the small, medium enterprises, and you can tailor-make it. You also mentioned about the security. So what else? What are some of the significant benefits of the mentioned Alibaba Cloud Solutions? Clarence?
Okay, so a lot of the customers that we work with, whether that be startups or big enterprises, a lot of them is concerned about cost. And that is something that Alibaba Cloud can definitely help support them. Some people, when they move to the cloud, they may be expecting cost to go down, but some of them, may see costs go up, and it's unexpected, right? So that usually happens because of some misconfigurations. That is why we offer one-on-one professional services and consulting to our customers to help drive down that cost, because we know that it is very important to any customers across multiple industries. We have a local team that is ready to support GCash, supporting GCash, and our customers to really help them drive optimization. How can we do this? And not only doing cost-related or cost optimization activities, but also supporting them in building their applications and supporting their innovation. Because right now, a lot of organizations and enterprises, they're not looking at technology as simply a line item that they have to tick off in their, in their spreadsheets. They're looking at technology as an enabler, right? That helps them to deliver more features, go to market faster with their new products so that they could acquire more customers and retain their existing customers.
Yeah, it seems like it's something that is required by practically every businesses. I'd like to get a take from Greg in terms of your experience about the significant benefits of the Alibaba Cloud solution. So same question, please, Greg.
Part of the key advantages enabled by Alibaba Cloud really are on the data side. So there's a standard solution set around when you talk about data, you're really talking about processing thousands of terabytes and gigabytes of data, which we actually generate today. You have your standard run-of-the-mill. Okay, I need to generate reports for business insight, or even reports for our partners. Things as simple as, hey, I need an average monthly summary of what my total transactions are. Or it would be very hard to facilitate, right? Because, for example, just number crunching on building your models alone, you'll need to provision potentially thousands of servers to do data analysis of some of the data. So that wouldn't be possible in a traditional fixed infrastructure or on-premise infrastructure. It would be theoretically possible, but it just wouldn't be very cost effective.
Excellent. I thought so. Now, again, this is a question for both you, Clarence and Greg. Moving forward, with GCash platform and Alibaba Cloud solutions, how can brands future-proof the fintech and financial industry given the success of the current partnership? Now we talk about scalability, cost effectiveness. Can I start with Greg first?
I think there are lots of technologies actually that Ali Cloud is looking at. So in addition to providing their sort of baseline capability, the overall roadmap for Ali Cloud is really moving also into, I guess, advanced solutions and looking more at solution sets that are rather than just raw infrastructure. So we're sort of exploring things with them around these areas. It's all still a little bit exploratory, right? But the nice thing about Ali Cloud and specifically the Alibaba Group as a whole is that they invest significantly in their own R&D. So whether this means developing for a specific set of solutions in the sort of generic cloud infrastructure space. So serverless is one of those areas that's sort of generating new buzz. We're not there yet in terms of our own infrastructure, but that's something that is sort of on the horizon. Then the other area I think is, as I mentioned, looking at more and more businesses rely on data to drive insight inside their organization. And I think that Ali Cloud's making a lot of headway also around that particular area.
Interesting, Greg. Now, I'd like to get Clarence's point of view on this, please. Clarence, about how brands can future-proof the fintech financial industry, given the success of your partnership with GCash.
Thank you. So GCash is really a pioneer in the fintech space in the Philippines, right? And they're paving the way, and there's a lot of learnings, there's a lot of experience that are being gathered. So we are very happy to be partnered with GCash, and it's a lot of the maybe the early challenges that we have helped GCash solve is something that can be shared, right, with some of the newcomers that are looking for a partner to help them or support them in as they begin or in their beginning phases of their journey. I think another important piece is the regulation aspect, right? Because we all know that the financial industry is a highly regulated industry, and with the BSP really trying to encourage innovation. So that it supports their mission to reach the unbanked and financial inclusion. So the Alibaba Cloud technology is very well suited to pass the regulations and the circulars that have been adopted by BSP for enterprises or financial institutions that would like to adapt to the cloud. So that is also something that we bring to the table to future startups and future players in this space.
Excellent. Greg of GCash and Clarence of Alibaba Cloud, thank you so much for your time. It has been an interesting and informative discussion. Just goes to show that the value of the collaboration is extremely important. For our audience, do subscribe to Digital Beats and watch out for other tech trends in the cloud. Thank you, everyone.